Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba of LumumbaSpeaks.com, back with today's Black History Fact. Well, I'm sorry, family. It's Friday. Please forgive me. Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, back with another great show in conjunction with Beacon Online Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. And we're back with part 16 of our groundbreaking Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we chronicle the lives, legacy, and most importantly, the work of great Pan-Africanists of the past in order to make a better world for African people in the future. If you're watching, family, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Make sure you hit the notification bell and be a blessing to the show via Cash App, Venmo, and of course the super chat. So family, once again, put a 1 in the chat if you are familiar with John Edward Bruce. Put a 2 in the chat if you are unfamiliar with John Edward Bruce. So before we get started, family, I want to just kind of check and see who was knowledgeable, who was aware of who John Edward Bruce is. So put a 1 in the chat if you are aware of who John Edward Bruce is, and put a 2 in the chat if you are unaware of who John Edward Bruce is. Once again, so Mr. K, appreciate you, brother. We've been corresponding offline via email, so definitely appreciate you. I do apologize. I was not able to do a SWOT analysis for John Edward Bruce. As you can imagine, kind of, gearing up for the school year. Semester starts in about 2 weeks, and just didn't have the chance to do that. But wanted to make sure I went ahead with the show. But with that being said, also, I'm actually currently reading the text that you talked about, In Search of Power, African Americans in the Era of Decolonization by Dr. Brenda Gale Plummer. I've actually finished the introduction. I'm starting chapter 1 today. So I definitely want to thank you for, of course, being part of course, the Lumumba Speaks and Beacon Online family and community, and, of course, putting us on the game as well in terms of further educate ourselves on, of course, the struggle. African people struggle for, of course, liberation, but also the Pan-African nature of that struggle as well. But that's one of the things that Dr. Plummer talks about, is that the fight for civil rights in America was linked, of course, what many people would call symbiotically linked with, of course, the history and struggle for decolonization and liberation in the Caribbean. So definitely appreciate that. You say, here's another banger, a must-read book for all historians, and called Historians' Fallacies. Historians' Fallacies toward a Logical Historical Thought. But so yes, I'm gonna check that out as well. I definitely appreciate that. So family, once again, before we get started, put a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with John Edward Bruce. Put a 2 in the chat if you're unfamiliar. This is part 16. Once again, part 16, family, of what we know will be nearly a 200-part series, Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we chronicle the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to learn how to make a better world for African people in the future. And we're chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of John Edward Bruce, journalist, historian, writer, orator, and, of course, Pan-Africanist. His parents, of course, were born into. His parents were enslaved. His father was sold when he was 3 years old, and he never saw his father again. Edward, of course, was educated at Howard University, right? So shout out to the Bison, right? DC, Chocolate City. So, of course, he began his career in the newspaper industry, right? Later in life, right, he became a prominent speaker on the lecture circuit, addressing issues of lynching, the condition of Blacks in the South, and the weak American political system, right? He joined T. Thomas Fortune, who was someone we will chronicle as well on the Pan-African Leadership Series, and created the Afro-American League, right? If many people, one of the things we find, particularly in the FBA ADOS Brigade, is the concept and idea of the concept Afro-American, African-American did not exist until, of course, 1988. Many of you may have seen the image that was being promoted on, of course, Black Twitter. What we do know, however, that is adverse to facts, ahistorical, and A great example to push back against that, of course, is that T. Thomas Fortune, along with John Edward Booth in 1890, created the Afro-American League, the first organized Black civil rights group in the nation. Many people argue that this was the precursor to, of course, the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And it's just real quick, family. I can recall vividly learning about, I would say, surface level Black history in school and even in the course in the Black church. And we would learn about the NAACP, but I never learned about the Afro-American League, right? So that's just an example, once again, what I would call nominal or surface level Black history that is taught oftentimes at I would call Negro institutions. So we just leave that there. And one of the rather peculiar things about Edward Bruce, and of course his Pan-African nationalism, not only that he worked with Arthur Schomburg, who was, of course, the Afro-Puerto Rican bibliophile. We know the New York Public Library Center for African American Life and Research is called the Arthur Schomburg Center, after Arthur Schomburg. We know Schomburg was affiliated with Garvey, wrote for the Negro World newspaper. And, of course, they founded the Negro Society for Historical Research, which later became, of course, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. But Bruce advocated for what? Armed self-defense, right? During the American Reconstruction era and after, many Black leaders espoused nonviolent strategies for social change. Appalled at the rise of lynchings and imposition of legal segregation, Bruce supported armed self-defense against racist attacks. He is quoted as saying, "The man who would not fight for the protection of his wife and children is a coward and deserves to be ill-treated. The man who takes his life in his hands and stands up for what he knows to be right will always command the respect of his enemy." He supported organized resistance to organized resistance, right? And so this is an example that goes far beyond, of course, Malcolm X. Many would argue, well, Malcolm X was someone who was just advocating. No, we find there's a long history of African Americans, Black men and Black women, advocating for armed self-defense against, of course, the vicious and violent and vile attacks of race soldiers against who sought to harm and oftentimes delete Black people. So something to consider. This is a great, that you read The Search for Power by Brenda Gill Plummer. Her other book, Rising Wind, is a must read back to back with reading In Search for Power. Very good. So I got to ask a question, brother, Mr. K. What do you do? I mean, you seem to be well-read, well-spoken, very knowledgeable of the history of African people, particularly, I could just say, at least from what our interactions in the Western world. What do you do? Are you an educator? Are you a professor? I mean, what do you do, brother? And a very quick, this important note about John Edward Bruce was not only was he the right-hand man to Arthur Schomburg, he was an intellectual mentor to Arthur Schomburg, going back to African American Negro Academy. So yeah, and he also was an intellectual mentor to Hubert Harrison, who was considered the Black Socrates. Absolutely. So this is a brother who actually is one of the more powerful and dynamic individuals in the Pan-Africanist movement at the turn of the 20th century, but he really doesn't get his just due. And so we're going to make sure that we give the great John Edward Bruce his flowers. Today, we know that he transitioned to the realm of the ancestors 101 years ago yesterday. So he transitioned August 7, 1924 at the age of 68. And even though he was a great orator, great speaker, and an intellect, and even a mentor to some great and prominent Pan-Africanists, he had to primarily work on the docks of New York City to earn a living. So we also oftentimes understand that it can be very difficult for someone who does take on and embrace the Black radical tradition of audacious self-assertion to find meaningful and gainful employment to where they're able to have live a financially stable life. So I think that's something to consider as well. So once again, family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure you hit the like button on Twitter as well. You can comment as well, or you can tap in here on YouTube at Lumumba Speaks and Beacon Line Network to be part of the conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link in the chat here, family. And of course, the link is in the description. So if you want to be part of the conversation, you can. John Edward Bruce is the epitome of a unsung Black historian. John Henry Clark even spoke of that. I would agree. Yes, I would agree. Absolutely. 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 Yes, he is the epitome. Absolutely. And many individuals do not know about him. So Tap in, family, be part of the conversation. What can we learn from of course, John Edward Bruce that we can use to move forward and make a better world for African people here in the future? I would argue, one, and this is just my position, of course, people could push back and give their own perspective, but his position, a couple things. One, be a mentor to the younger generation. We know oftentimes we can find, unfortunately, in some elders, an unwillingness, right? An unwillingness to give the reins to the younger generation, right? I would disagree with that. We know Edward Wilmot Blyden talked about the importance of what cultivating leadership in the next generation. We know oftentimes if you grow up in what I would call Negro religious traditions, we're taught to pray, right, for leaders, right? When the reality of the situation is we should cultivate and create them ourselves, right, in our community. So that's something to consider. I think a second issue, and this needs to be promoted more, is his position advocating for, of course, armed self-defense, right? We are in a position today where we find ourselves being attacked by race soldiers, not only who wear a badge, but also individuals who, of course, are engaging in white vigilantism. We saw what happened in Cincinnati. Unfortunately, those brothers and sisters were the ones who are facing criminal charges. But I would definitely stand with anyone who's standing up against, of course, the vile and, of course, unprovoked attacks by them folks against our people. And I think also we look at the work of Dr. John Edward Bruce. I'm sorry, he wasn't a PhD, but I mean, he is my PhD, I put it that way, is considering the importance of what? The written word, so print, right? And that's something that he worked in, of course, the newspaper industry. He was a journalist, even a co-editor for a number of newspapers. So understanding the power of the written word, I think, is important as well. And so that may even, of course, mutate to, of course, social media nowadays. Many individuals do not necessarily write, but they're using social media as a platform to disseminate their ideas and views. I think that's something that we should look into doing as well. And Mr. K says, I got two biography books on John Edward Bruce, Ralph Crowder and William Sorrell. Very good, very good. So once again, Mr. K, what do you do? Are you a autodidactic student? Are you an educator? Kind of, share with us your background. But once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you all regarding John Edward Bruce, Pan-African nationalist, journalist, historian, writer, and orator, right? So tap in, family, be part of the conversation. This is part 16. Once again, part 16 of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we're chronicling the life, legacy, and work, of course, of John Edward Bruce. Once again, if you're on the East Coast, it should be the lunch hour. If you are further east, Anjalio, London, and of course on the continent, it should be around the time where you're getting off of work. And we hope that you could tap in and be part of the conversation today. And if you are on the West Coast, it's still bright and early here on August 8th, 2025, where we're celebrating not only Black August, family, but also today is the birthday of Matthew Henson, who, of course, we know is a Black man born in Maryland, who was one of the leading explorers of his generation and is oftentimes cited as the individual who discovered the North Pole. So definitely want to give a shout out to Matthew Henson as well. Let's see here. Personally, I feel, although those books are informative, they still feel that they are incomplete in terms of giving a comprehensive biographical narrative on John Edward Bruce's life and legacy. Okay, I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand that. Overstood. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. This is part 16 of our groundbreaking Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we chronicle the life, legacy, and work of Pan-Africans of the past in order to learn how to make a great world, better world for African people in the future. Once again, the link is in the description. Tap in, be part of the conversation. If you're watching on Twitter, I can put the link in on Twitter if you want to tap in and be part of the conversation. Would love to hear from you all regarding not only the life, legacy, and work of John Edward Bruce, but also even if you're having some questions about Pan-Africanism. We know, unfortunately, nowadays there's a lot of misinformation being promoted about the movement and ideology. And I think myself, along with brother Mr. K, would be able to speak to some of those misnomers. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. I hope to hear from you all soon. Hope to hear from you all soon. So once again, tap in. I'm going to put the link in the chat here on Twitter now, and hopefully you all could tap in, be part of the conversation. I'd love to hear from you all regarding, of course, part 16. No, I have not. I have not read those two authors' books. Part 16, of course, of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we are chronicling the lives, legacy, and work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to make a better world for African people in the future. One of the reasons why I decided to create this leadership series was also to really dispel many of the myths, right? Misinformation being promoted about Pan-Africanism, right? One of the prevaricating narratives that's being promoted is the concept and idea that Pan-Africanism is one-sided. I think in just 16 episodes of our series, we've been able to dispel that myth. The concept and idea that Pan-Africanism requires one to repatriate to Africa. That, of course, is something that is not true, or that issues on the continent should take precedent versus issues that affect Black people or African people throughout the world. That, of course, is not true. What Pan-Africanism does advocate is an understanding that anti-Black racism is global in nature, and that the anti-Black racism that one is experiencing in their local municipality, state, or nation is connected to a global system of anti-Black racism, right? And that we should, irrespective of where we are and what our ethnic identity, nationality, or even our clan is, we should work together to improve the social, political, and economic conditions of African life, irrespective where we are on the planet. So once again, family, to answer your question to what I do, let's just say I'm a very studious person that educates people independently as I can, but it's always student. Very good. Well, you're educating me. I definitely appreciate it. And that's one of the reasons why we push for people to come on and be part of the conversation, because no one is ever going to know everything. That's just not a reality. It's not realistic. And so whenever I can, reach out and have a conversation and build a rapport with someone who is knowledgeable more than myself, this is like, for me, I'm like, this is someone I need to be connected with. Definitely someone that I wanted to embrace and befriend. A great example of that is Brother Dwayne Omawale. Many of you who've been watching my content know Brother Dwayne Omawale is, of course, the resident historian here at Bequaline Network. And if we could get you on camera, Mr. K, you could be our resident historian as well here at Bequaline Network on No More Speaks. But I was able to, make a connection with Brother Dwayne Omawale. He's been a mentor of mine ever since. So definitely appreciative for that. Once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation as we're discussing the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of John Edward Bruce, Pan-African nationalist from the good old U.S. of A. Parents were, of course, enslaved. Father was sold when he was 3 years old. He never saw his father again. Of course, he is born in Maryland, attended Howard University, HBCU, shout out to the Bison, and of course was a co-founder of the Afro-American League, which was the first national civil rights organization for African Americans, a mentor to Arthur Schomburg, shout out to Arthur Schomburg right away, my Afro-Puerto Rican bibliophile, and Hubert Harrison, who's considered the Black Socrates, and he was a staunch advocate of armed self-defense against, of course, the race soldiers and white vigilantism. His position was we must have organized resistance to organized resistance. Ashe and Black power to that. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. Also, if you have any questions, even if you have some challenges to Pan-Africanism. This is the place to have that conversation. Once again, we believe in diversity of thought, irrespective if you're on the left, you're on the right, or you're right down the middle. What we advocate for is diversity of thought. We do not believe that individuals learn by operating in an echo chamber. I'll say that one more time. We do not believe that individuals learn or grow, not only intellectually, but personally or professionally, by operating in the echo chamber. Also, we're staunch advocates for, of course, respect. So on this platform, we believe in the 3 N's of Black power: self-respect, self-defense, and of course, self-determination. So we don't allow epithets of any kind on the platform, particularly racial epithets, but epithets of any kind. Also, family, you can provide an opinion. You can provide an opinion, but you can't make a claim that is averse to facts. If you do, of course, I will, stop you like Sandman on Showtime at the Apollo. And then, of course, last but not least, right, we focus on facts over feelings. That means if you disagree with someone, you attack the argument the person is making, not the person themselves. So you attack the argument, not the person. Attack the argument, not the person. We don't do it ad hominems here. We don't do red herrings. We want to make sure that we stay on task. And with that being said, family, the link is in the description. The link's in the chat. Tap in, be part of the convo. I'm just searching for books for John Edward Bruce. It seems some of the other biography books on his life published in 60, unfortunately out of print. Yeah, that more than likely. Maybe you could find them in PDF, right? Maybe someone uploaded them via university library system. Once again, family, the link is in the description. Link is in the chat. Definitely would love to hear from you all regarding John Edward Bruce, right? John Edward Bruce, of course, the Maryland-born, Howard University educated Pan-African nationalist, co-creator, co-founder of the Afro-American League, the first national Black civil rights organization, precursor to the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and, as we know, a mentor to Hubert Harrison and Arthur Schomburg, and a staunch advocate for armed self-defense, organized resistance to organized resistance. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. This is part 16. Once again, part 16 of our groundbreaking, keyword groundbreaking, Pan-African Leadership Series, past, present, and future, where we chronicle the life, legacy, and most importantly, keyword family, most importantly, the work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to learn how to create a better world for African people in the future. So tap in, family, be part of the conversation. You're watching Lumumba Speaks and Big Online Network here on YouTube. So let me ask you this question, Mr. K. How long have you been watching our content, and how did you become aware, of course, of my channel? So put that out to you. Hopefully you can answer that question. Hopefully you could tap in and be part of the conversation as well. As you're an academic scholar, maybe you can get access to it. Yeah, I probably would be able to do so because I'm able to use my credentials here in the library, and that gives me access to a national database. So yeah, I think you're right about that. Absolutely. That's how I was able to, get Dr. Plummer's book. I was actually able to go through our library database and just get the PDF version of the book rather than actually purchasing the book, which I like to do. I'm a bibliophile myself. So something to consider there. So I definitely appreciate that, brother. Definitely appreciate that. But once again, how did you come in contact, become aware, of course, of our platform? So once again, family, if you're watching on Twitter, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. This is part 16 of our groundbreaking Pan-African Leadership Series. Once again, part 16 of our groundbreaking Pan-African Leadership Series, past, present, and future. So tap in, family, be part of the conversation. Would love to hear from you all. Once again, another thing when we talk about his work with Arthur Schomburg, where they created the Negro Society for Historical Research, which of course later became the Schomburg Center for Black Culture. This brought together Africans, West Indians, and African American scholars, right? So when we talk about this concept of it being one-sided, this, of course, Negro Society for Historical Research, an example of Pan-Africanism not being one-sided, where we had Black people from all 3 points of the triangle of trade, unfortunately, right? The continent, the West Indies, of course, in the United States. And I would even maybe argue brothers and sisters even from the UK, Europe, Western Europe, participating in an organization to, of course, promote the study and access a history of Black people, African people throughout the world. We know, as Dr. John Henry Clark stated, that one of the things that was the impetus for his push for scholarly inquiry and, of course, to learn the history of our people was being told in school that we didn't have any history, right? And we know nowadays that's not something that is explicitly stated. It's not overt, but it's covert. And covert example of Black people being taught that they don't have history is simply by not discussing the history in school, right? So oftentimes if we're given examples of math or given examples of industry, of people being industrialists, or even of agency, right? That is being promoted covertly by simply not even mentioning the contributions of African people in any particular field of endeavor. So once again, it doesn't have to be overt, right? Sometimes it can even be covert in nature as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but being an academic gives you clearance to access classified archive documents, and academics that non-academics cannot access, by the way. It can. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. You can be an academic. You can find yourself in a position where you get access to particular documents that are not already available to the general public, right? Oftentimes, most institutions, I would dare say all academic institutions, typically have a archival area at the main library, right? But you typically, but depending on the institution, may need a particular clearance or credentials to gain access to those archival documents. So great question. I appreciate that. Once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. This is part 16, of course, of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future, where we're chronicling the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of John Edward Bruce, Pan-African nationalist, Maryland-born, Howard University educated, son of enslaved African Americans who went on to create the Afro-American Association, which was, of course, the first national civil rights organization, precursor to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also known as the NAACP, co-founded an organization with T. Thomas Fortune, who we will chronicle later in the series as well. And then, of course, a mentor to Arthur Schomburg, the Afro-Puerto Rican bibliophile, who, of course, was an acolyte and writer of Marcus Garvey, but also writer for the Negro World newspaper, which was the literary organ of course, Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association, and mentor to Hubert Harrison, who was from St. Croix, who was considered the Black Socrates, right? So definitely, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. I'd love to hear from you all regarding John Edward Bruce. And if you have any questions regarding Pan-Africanism, more than willing to ask. As we stated before, we believe in diversity of thought. We do not believe that people learn by operating in an echo chamber, right? We do not believe people learn by operating in an echo chamber. So definitely tap in, family, be part of the conversation. This is part 16 of our Pan-African Leadership Series, Past, Present, and Future. Make sure you tap in, be part of the conversation, and make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction, family, in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire in the home, once again, the home of African-centered news and information. To answer your question, I've checked for your channel from nearly the beginning. I was just searching for some Pan-African content creators, which is how I found you. But I give thanks, appreciation for that. I hope that we are able to meet your standard, brother. And we're always looking for people who are influential to help us improve the channel and improve the work that we do. As I said before, we know that there's a lot of misinformation being promoted and propagated in social media spaces. Individuals tend to be intellectually disingenuous and providing information that, of course, is averse to facts. I would argue that anyone who seeks to do that is not really trying to help someone. Their goal is actually to manipulate, to control one's thinking, and subsequently their behavior. So that is something to, of course, consider. As Mr. K, I think you were on the live when I provided my vociferous critique and reaction video to 19 Keys, right? In terms of his, of course, interview on the Breakfast Club. I've reached out to 19 Keys, his business manager. I've emailed them on numerous occasions in terms of trying to get him on the show so we can have a conversation. Of course, as of now, I have not heard back. And this tends to be, the case when we have individuals who are charlatans, right? They typically will not have a conversation with someone who is an intellectual peer or superior out of fear that in doing so, their charade will be exposed. So this is something that we understand that we will have to deal with on a diurnal basis as African people, where you have individuals who really, are pimping, of course, the emotions of our people by oftentimes speaking to, issues that are factual, but providing nonsensical solutions rooted in ahistorical narratives as a way to, of course, escape the vicissitudes of anti-Black racism in the world. So something to consider there, family. But once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. If not, we're going to actually log off. Definitely want to appreciate everyone who took time on this Friday, Pan-African Friday. I hope you all are celebrating Black August. If you don't know what Black August is, make sure that you look that up. But we know Black August is a month where we honor, of course, the legacy of Pan-African freedom fighters throughout the world. Sister Akbar, I appreciate you, sister. You're watching. You could tap in. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. We, of course, are celebrating Black August, right? Black August. And we're discussing, of course, John Edward Bruce, who was, of course, an advocate for armed self-defense, creator of the Afro-American Association. And, of course, I saw your post on social media. You was talking about a run-in that you had with the police, right, in our hometown, Gem City, Dayton, Ohio. But definitely, family, if you are open to it, tap in, be part of the conversation where we're looking at how can we learn from, of course, the life, legacy, and most importantly, the work of John Edward Bruce in order to make a better world for African people in the future. And when we talk about, of course, it's not being an echo chamber. We're learning from each other, right? This is a community where we all come together to learn. Sister Akbar put me on game, right? Sister Akbar stated, brother, I stated food. I said it was a food desert. And she corrected me. She said, no, brother, a desert is something that is that's a natural occurrence. We're dealing with food apartheid, which is man-made. I said, I appreciate the education, right? Because I would have been promoting and propagating inaccurate information to the masses, right? It's not a food desert. It's food apartheid, right? And it's a social, political, and economic dynamic that creates, right, the lack of access to whole and nutritious food, of course, in our community. So once again, family, that is an example how on this platform, this isn't a situation where I operate from a bully pulpit, right? This is a space where we come together and we're able to learn from each other in order to better the lives of our people, irrespective of where we are on the planet. Sister Akbar, for example, was a part of the organization known as a New Era, right? Started off in Detroit with a powerful brother in Detroit who said, listen, we have to go take to the streets, grassroots, and do the work to improve our communities. They now have, according to Sister Akbar, if I remember correctly, 17 chapters globally, right? They even have chapters on the continent, right? So this is an example, once again, of Pan-Africanism, the efficacy of Pan-Africanism, and the fact that it's not one-sided, which is something that oftentimes is being promoted by the FBA, ADOS Brigade. Once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. If not, we're going to log out. But I definitely want to appreciate everyone who came in, decided to be part of the show. And once again, if you're watching on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, right? At Bakari Lumumba. Follow us, of course, on Medium, at Bakari Lumumba on Medium. And then, of course, follow us on YouTube as well at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and Be Quillan Network. Till next time, family, y'all know what to do. Always, always, always bet on Black. Peace. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on black. Peace.